After weeks of speculation, tension, and what felt like an endless back and forth between player and franchise, the Jonathan Kuminga saga has finally reached its conclusion. The Warriors locked him in with a 2-year deal worth $48.5 million. And just like that, one of the biggest question marks hanging over the offseason has been erased. Now, on paper, this should be cause for celebration. A young, athletic, and high-upside forward is staying put. But here's the thing. There's still a lot of uncertainty in the air, and not all Warriors fans are feeling that wave of relief just yet. The deal is done, yes, but the way it all played out raises some eyebrows. Why didn't Kuminga just accept the initial 3-year deal that was reportedly on the table? That extra year of security, especially considering the possibility of being traded, would have made a lot of sense. Was it about betting on himself? Was it a move from his camp to leave the door open for flexibility in the near future? Whatever the motive, the end result is what matters most. Kuminga stays, and now it's time for him to prove that the investment was worth it. At Media Day, the tone was clear. No more drama. If Kuminga is serious about taking that next step and becoming a core part of the Warriors' push for another title, now is the moment. The opportunity is right there in front of him. The lineup is solidified, and the 3 spot, which was once a blurry question mark, now has his name written all over it. That opens up space for Jimmy to fully step into the 2-guard role, allowing the rest of the pieces to fall into place around Steph and Draymond. Draymond Green, speaking candidly as always, reminded everyone that negotiations are never smooth. There's always going to be some friction, some hardball tactics, some drawn-out conversations where both sides try to get that upper hand. Rarely do you come out with a win-win situation, and yet here we are. Kuminga got his money. The Warriors got a short-term commitment and flexibility with a team option and a trade kicker baked in. So while it might not be a perfect deal on either end, it's one that gives both sides room to breathe. That 15% trade kicker is especially interesting. If Kuminga gets moved, he'll be rewarded with a boost in pay. That kind of detail doesn't go unnoticed in the NBA, and it hints at a future where a trade might still be on the table, especially once January 15th hits, the first day he becomes eligible to be moved. A lot can happen between now and then. He might explode out of the gate, establish himself as an integral part of the rotation, and squash all the trade rumors. Or he could struggle to fit into this new system, and the trade talk could ramp up fast. Either way, the ball is in his court. He controls the narrative now, and the Warriors, whether they admit it or not, are in a bit of a holding pattern, waiting to see if this version of Kuminga is the one who can grow into a franchise pillar once Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy eventually step away. Now, as much as I'm rooting for Kuminga to succeed, I'll be real with you. Part of me was ready to move on. Not because he's a bad player. Far from it. But because this team desperately needs depth. Look at the roster. Yes, there's talent. Yes, there's experience, but there are still gaps. You need bodies to survive a deep playoff run. You can't go into battle leaning too heavily on your starters, especially not with the wear and tear this core has already gone through. We all saw what happened to the Knicks last year when they rode their starters into the ground. It caught up with them, and they were a young team. The Warriors don't have that luxury anymore. So when the front office brought in guys like D'Anthony Melton, Seth Curry, and Al Horford, I liked it. Those are good moves. They help round out the roster, give you options, versatility, and in Seth's case, elite shooting. But even with those additions, I still see holes. The size issue is real. You can't go into a season with only one legitimate 7-footer and expect to hold up against the league's biggest, most physical frontcourts. That's not going to cut it, especially not in the West. Maybe they've still got a few moves left in the chamber. Maybe they'll try to maneuver under the second apron or the hard cap, make a few trades, or sign a couple of veterans on minimum deals. Maybe even revisit some of the deals like Melton's before they're finalized. I don't know what the front office is planning, but something needs to happen. The roster, while improved, doesn't feel complete. And you can feel it. There's just this lingering sense of, are we really ready? Even though Kuminga's staying helps settle things on the surface, it doesn't resolve the bigger questions about fit and identity. He's got the athleticism, the potential, the flashes. We've seen it. But does he fit with his current core? Is he the right guy to play next to Jimmy and Draymond? Or does he become part of a larger trade package if someone big suddenly becomes available? Speaking of trades, there's always the dream scenario. If someone like Giannis becomes available, and that's a big if, then Kuminga's new contract is fully tradable. That kicker might even be included, though that part's still a bit murky. Either way, the structure of the deal gives the Warriors the ability to match salaries and make a blockbuster move if the opportunity arises. It's not just about Giannis either. You could pivot, move Kuminga for draft capital and depth, bring in a stretch big or a legit 3-and-D wing, and recalibrate the roster for both the present and the future. And look, I get it. The idea of a last dance season with this core is tempting. You want to go all in, give Steph and Draymond one last shot at glory. But you also have to be smart. You can't just add any big name. If someone is disgruntled, if the fit isn't right, you could be doing more harm than good. I mean, let's talk hypotheticals here. What if LeBron became available? I'm not saying it's likely, but if the Lakers start to unravel and LeBron decides he wants out for one last playoff push, that's a phone call you have to consider. Imagine LeBron for Kuminga, Moody, maybe Buddy Hield to match contracts. LeBron gets one last ride with Steph, and Kuminga gets a fresh start playing with a passer like Luka in Dallas. It's a long shot, but this league moves fast, and you got to be ready for anything. Still, the glaring issue with this roster isn't just about trades or big names. It's about structure. Let's talk about the wing positions. Kuminga and Jimmy are holding down the wings, but neither is a consistent three-point shooter. In today's NBA, that's a real problem. You need spacing. You need threats from deep to keep defenses honest. You can't rely on Steph to be the only sniper on the floor. Sure, you can throw Buddy or Seth out there, but then you run into size mismatches. And that only works if they're hitting shots at an elite clip every night. Seth shot 45% from three last season, which is insane, but you can't expect that kind of efficiency every single night. And defensively, both Curry brothers on the floor together means you're giving up size and physicality. That's just the reality. Now, onto the 5 spot. Yes, Al Horford can stretch the floor and help space things out. And yes, Draymond wants to go back to his natural 4 position, especially as he gets older. But Horford is 39. You can't expect him to log heavy minutes or stay healthy all year. And behind him, the only legit 7-footer is Post, a young guy with a sweet shooting stroke, but nowhere near ready to bang with the likes of Jokic, Embiid, or even guys like Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren. He's just not there yet, physically. This is why I'm still sounding the alarm. The roster may look rounded out on paper, but there are cracks beneath the surface. Cracks that the best teams in the league will exploit. Come preseason, I wouldn't be surprised if we see opposing teams attack the middle relentlessly, exposing our lack of size and rim protection. Looney's absence as that physical anchor is going to hurt more than people think. And if we're not prepared, those issues will only compound once the regular season begins. And that's really where the frustration starts to build, because we've seen this movie before. A roster that looks solid enough on the surface, full of talent, vets, and promise, but when you dig a little deeper, the flaws start jumping out. The Warriors have always been at their best when they're balanced. When they had that perfect blend of shooting, defense, rim protection, and IQ across all 5 positions. But right now, they feel like a team with pieces that don't quite fit together. Or at least, not in a way that maximizes everyone's strengths. Take Kuminga again, for example. He's got the tools. There's no question about that. He's explosive, he's improving as a defender, and when he's locked in, he could be a game changer. But in a system that revolves around ball movement, spacing, and precision, is he the guy you trust on the wing when the game slows down in May and June? Is he going to hit that big corner 3 when the defense collapses on Steph? Or make the smart rotation on defense when the stakes are highest? These aren't hypotheticals. These are the questions that define whether or not he's part of the long-term solution or just a placeholder until the next move presents itself. And it's not just Kuminga. Even with additions like Melton and Seth, there are serious concerns about defensive matchups, rotations, and whether this group can hang with the top-tier teams over a 7-game series. You're going up against squads like the Nuggets, the Timberwolves, the Bucks, and the Celtics, teams that have size, shooting, and depth in spades. How does this current Warriors team hold up in those matchups? Because right now, there's no clear answer. Then there's the age factor. This team isn't young. The core is seasoned, yes. Championship experience counts for a lot, but there's a fine line between experience and wear and tear. Steph's minutes need to be managed. Draymond can't anchor a defense by himself anymore, not at this stage. Horford, as valuable as he is as a floor spacer and locker room presence, can't give you 30 minutes a night. And when you start looking at the bench, you realize quickly that while there's potential, there's also a lot of unproven talent and guys who may not be ready for the spotlight. So what's the path forward? That's the million-dollar question. The Warriors have committed to a hybrid approach, staying competitive while also trying to develop their next generation. But that balancing act is harder than it looks. You can't fully rebuild while your stars are still chasing titles. And you can't fully contend if you're relying on young guys to fill critical roles. That's why the middle ground they're sitting in right now is so risky. One misstep, one injury, one bad month, and the whole thing can come crashing down. That's why fans are looking at the trade market so closely. Because whether they admit it or not, this roster feels like it's waiting for a shakeup. And while the idea of a Giannis or LeBron-type trade still sounds like fantasy, in the NBA, situations change fast. A star gets frustrated. A team underperforms. Suddenly, a player once considered untouchable is on the market. And when that moment comes, you have to be ready. You have to have the contracts, the assets, the flexibility to strike. Kuminga's new deal gives the Warriors some of that flexibility. He's now tradable. And more importantly, his contract is big enough to be part of a larger package if something massive becomes available. That matters. You can't trade for a superstar with a bunch of minimum contracts. You need matching salaries. You need value. And Kuminga, for all his question marks, still holds real value around the league. He's young, athletic, and on a manageable deal with a short term. That's appealing to a lot of front offices. But here's the flip side. If he does play well, if he finally breaks through, then the Warriors might not want to move him at all. He could become that bridge into the future. The guy who keeps the window cracked open a little longer after Steph and Draymond are gone. That's the gamble they're taking. Keep him, hope for growth, and if it doesn't work, pivot mid-season. And let's not forget, the Western Conference is brutal. There are no easy nights. Every team has improved. Younger teams are getting stronger. Stars are teaming up. The margin for error is razor thin. You can't afford to be a step slow or a piece short. That's why these roster concerns aren't just nitpicking. They're very real, and they will come into play over the course of 82 games and into the postseason. Now, you look at the frontcourt rotation. It's shaky. Horford is there, sure. But like we said, he's 39. Post is promising, but he's raw. And Draymond, as much as we all love him, can't be your full-time five in today's NBA anymore. Not against guys like Jokic or Embiid. That's why so many fans are asking, where's the true rim protector? Where's the big body who can bang in the paint, grab rebounds, and make life miserable for opposing centers? Without someone like that, you're relying on a lot of help defense, a lot of switching, and hoping that guys like Kuminga and Moody can take on bigger defensive responsibilities. That's a lot to ask for a team trying to make a deep run. And it puts an even heavier burden on Steph to not only carry the offense, but also to make up for defensive lapses created by undersized lineups. Before we continue, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Dubs updates. Let's keep going. The NBA world is buzzing with a rumor that, if true, could completely shake the balance of power in the league. According to whispers making the rounds in league circles, Joel Embiid has finally forced his way out of Philadelphia and, in a shocking twist, chosen the Golden State Warriors as his next destination. Nothing is official yet, at least not on paper, but the smoke coming from multiple corners suggests that something big is brewing, and Embiid may soon be wearing the blue and gold. The reigning MVP has long been the centerpiece of the 76ers, carrying the franchise on his back through years of playoff heartbreak. But frustrations have been mounting. Early exits, internal instability, and the inability to surround him with a truly championship-ready roster have left the big man restless. The latest murmurs suggest that Embiid made it clear to Philadelphia's front office he wanted out, and not just anywhere. He wanted Golden State. On the surface, the pairing seems almost too perfect. Imagine Embiid's sheer dominance inside the paint mixed with the Warriors' signature perimeter firepower led by Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. Opponents would be forced into impossible choices: collapse on Embiid and risk Curry torching them from deep, or stretch out to defend the Splash Brothers and watch Embiid bully his way to the rim. For Golden State, it could be the kind of move that extends their dynasty beyond its twilight years. Of course, questions linger. What would the Warriors have to give up? Could they part ways with some of their young core, Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, or even a cornerstone like Andrew Wiggins? How much draft capital would it take to satisfy Philadelphia, a team reluctant to let go of its franchise icon? The logistics remain a mystery, but the rumor is loud enough to keep fans glued to their screens. One thing is certain: if Embiid truly ends up in San Francisco, the NBA landscape will never be the same. The idea of the Warriors reinventing themselves around Curry and Embiid feels like the kind of twist only basketball gods could script. For now, it's just talk, just noise echoing through back channels. But sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire, and this particular blaze could light up the entire league. Stay updated exclusively with the latest Dub Nation news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep getting daily updates on the Warriors. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Your input is essential for the Dubs community. Stay tuned for the next video.